Do you like corn? If you answered yes, then Iowa is right for you. All right, cut the video. Let's go pack it up. Let's get going here. Did you want more? All right, let's talk about if Iowa is right for you. Let's start off with the basics. What is the weather like? Well, do you like bitter cold and scorching heat? Well, Iowa has both of those. But in all honesty, we actually have 4 seasons. So we have the best of the best and the worst of the worst. In the summer times, it is hot, humid, and I can't stand it. It's not my favorite season. I know a lot of people, especially a lot of you out there, do love the heat, but it is not for me. I am too warm-blooded for that stuff, and I can't stand it. We get so much humidity here in Iowa because of all those cornfields that are around. We're constantly emitting humidity up into the air, and we can feel it. Although, as I'm standing here talking about it in the middle of July in Iowa, it's actually not terrible out. We had a fairly decent summer, highs in the 80s, lows in the 60s, 70s. So it's not been too bad this summer, so I can't complain. Although now that I say that, it's probably getting really hot. So cross my fingers that it doesn't. But absolutely, top of the line, favorite time of season for me is the fall time. We get a lot of leaves changing. We get those cooler temperatures. It's warm enough during the day that you still don't need a coat on, but cool enough in the evening that you can actually cool off. Unlike the summertime, except for now, it gets hot all the way through the night, but in the fall, you can have that cool off period. It's my favorite time to do bonfires, hanging out with friends, going out and looking at the changing of the seasons of the leaves. It's really, really cool. But then winter comes. Winter is probably the one reason that a lot of people kind of stray away from Iowa, and it's because we do get super cold and we do get a lot of snow. Now, we're not talking snows like Minnesota has. They're crazy up there. But we do get a substantial amount of snow, and it does depend on where in Iowa that you decide to land. Because northern Iowa versus southern Iowa is quite a big difference in the amount of snow and how cold they get. Doesn't seem like it'd make a big difference, but it really does. And then we get into the springtime. And in the springtime, we get the severe weather, we get the tornadoes, we get the hail, we get just about everything you can think of, but it's still a great time because the weather is cooler. It is a little bit nicer. We're coming out of that winter time. People are really loving getting outside, spending the time outside because we've been in that winter with our coats on all winter long, and we just really want to enjoy it. So those are the 4 seasons that we do get here in Iowa. So just know that going in on if Iowa's for you. If you like 4 seasons, if you like hot, you like cold, well, we got it all for you. And that right there is the reason that people give me a call. I live here in Iowa. I know what those details are about living here in Iowa. So if you have any questions, I am a licensed realtor here in the state of Iowa. Give me a call. Give me any questions you might have. I am the one that answers those calls and questions, so I am available for you. Now, on a lot of my videos, I talk about people in Iowa being Iowa nice. And the questions are, is that actually true? And 100% absolutely, it is true. Yes, people here in Iowa absolutely love to be helpful and say their please, thank yous, and it's just a cultural thing that we got going on here. And if you do run into somebody rude here, just know they're probably from Chicago.
Pow!
Alright, I'm just kidding, guys from Chicago. I love you too. But, in general, people are going to be extremely nice here. And, just for an example, I had a couple move here from Nevada, and they asked that same question. Are the people really as nice as what you explain in your videos? And they got to experience it firsthand. When they moved in, their neighbor brought them a plate of cookies. And that's not really that out of the norm when moving to Iowa. So they got firsthand knowledge of what Iowa nice actually is, and they absolutely loved it. So is it for you? Well, that depends on if you like nice people or not.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
My name's Alex.
Alex.
My channel is called Living in the Quad Cities.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's just kind of talking about what the Quad Cities is like so people outside know. Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Sorry about that. People are always curious when I turn on the camera on what I'm doing. So, I had to tell them a little bit about the channel. Do you like to keep your money? I know I do. That's another reason why Iowa may be for you if you're somebody that likes that. Just think about this for a second. Iowa enjoys the second lowest income to household value ratio because we have super low prices for homes. We're not number one as far as low prices, but we're pretty close in there. And we have very well-paying jobs. So to afford a home here in Iowa is much more accessible to a lot more people. And that cost of living is a big piece of that. Just the housing in general is very good, in the cost of living. So that is one thing that we tout here in Iowa is we like to keep our money, and because of our low cost of living, it's just a big factor when moving here. And by the way, the average cost of a home here in Iowa is $200,000. If you get a mortgage on that, a lot of times your mortgage payment is going to be cheaper than a lot of rents everywhere else in the country. So you could be owning your own home for a cheaper amount of monthly cost than renting somewhere else. So another huge factor when it comes to housing. But what about jobs? I mentioned that we have higher paying jobs here in Iowa, and it's not just agriculture. Yes, we obviously have the agricultural sector that's our largest economic driver, but we also have the tech jobs, we have the engineering jobs, we have the manufacturing jobs, we even have jobs in insurance. In Des Moines, we have Facebook there, we have Microsoft there, we have the insurance capital of the nation there. That's what they call Des Moines. So a lot of those jobs are super high paying, and again, your low cost of living really helps out with that. So if you have something that you want to do and it's not in agriculture, look at Iowa as that option, because we do have a lot of those. And by the way, we also have Google over in Council Bluffs. So there's another tech giant that is in the state of Iowa. And honestly, a lot of those places are moving to Iowa because of the same factors that the people are moving here. The low cost of living and the low cost of doing business here in Iowa is substantial for a lot of those companies. So if those big companies are moving here, maybe it says something about what Iowa has to offer. Other factors of low cost of living here is the food cost. I think we have the 6th lowest food costs in the union. And part of that reason really is because most of the food comes from Iowa. We grow a lot of this stuff ourselves. Now, we don't have a lot of diversity. We can't grow orange trees, for example, but we grow a lot of the staples here in the state of Iowa. And you see that in our culture as well. A lot of these bigger cities and even a lot of the small towns have farmers markets. Right here in Davenport, it happens every Saturday during the summer, and you get that fresh produce, those fresh sweet corn. A lot of times we get fresh strawberries, asparagus, pretty much any kind of crop that you can think of, you can get at that farmers market, and it's relatively cheap compared to other states where you don't grow it locally and it's hard to come by those fresh produce where you want to be. So it's a huge factor. Again, that cost of living is a thing, and it's something that we're really proud of when we're talking about Iowa. So if you like to keep your money, Iowa may be a great option for you. Oh boy, hot topic next, and that is the school systems here in Iowa. You see in the national media all the time, the schools, the public school system, it's kind of in limbo. People have very mixed feelings about it. But if you're wanting a school choice, Iowa actually may be a really good option for you. Not to get political, but just recently, this year, our governor passed a bill stating that they're not going to be funding schools, they're going to be funding students. So what does that mean? Well, from what I understand about the bill is that each student is going to get an allowance from the government, and they can choose what they want to do with that. Can they go to public school? Yeah, they can go to public school, but they can also use that money to go and pay for tuitions at private schools. So if school choice for your children is a priority for you, look at Iowa as that option, because it is coming out. It's going to be rolling out in the next 3 years or so. So it's a big deal for some people, and it may be a big deal for you. So think about it. If you want to move to the state of Iowa, is if your school choice is a big option and deciding factor for you. Does traffic stress you out? It stresses me out. And that's another reason why I live in Iowa. Traffic here is almost non-existent, unless you count the occasional traffic jam caused by a tractor. That does happen, by the way. But I will say it's not completely perfect. We do have larger cities like Davenport, Des Moines, and I'll tell you, Des Moines, every time I go through there, I seem to get caught up in traffic. Now, it's not standstill grid traffic most of the time, but it does happen. I do remember one time I was going through Des Moines. I was trying to get through before a snowstorm came, and I didn't quite make it. They had predicted that one time. I thought I was gonna get through, and it didn't. It got there earlier than they expected it to. So what happened is I was coming over the hill in Des Moines, and all of a sudden the traffic was standstill. They had a 27 car pileup happen right before I got there. So everything was stopped and I had no time to stop. What actually happened is I hit the brakes, I turned the wheel, and I hit the median, bounced off the median and bounced back into traffic. Something was watching over me, someone was watching over me, because I got no damage to my car except for a little tiny rim damage from hitting that barrier. But overall, going 70 miles an hour, I was extremely lucky to not have that accident. But again, the traffic, that's just one example, but the traffic overall is pretty non-existent and it's pretty free-flowing most of the time. Healthcare in Iowa is actually world-class, as some people would like to say. And the main driver of that is the University of Iowa hospitals, and it's well-deserved. I'm an Iowa State alum, so it's hard for me to say that, but they do a fantastic job when it comes to healthcare. And in Iowa in general, the healthcare is fairly good. You know, we have those hospitals, and we also have small clinics in a lot of the small towns, so it's very accessible to a lot of people. Now, the one thing I will say about Iowa University is they're pretty amazing at the healthcare, but they're also pretty amazing at just what they do. If you're not familiar, during Iowa University football games, I think it's the first quarter is over, they have the children's hospital right there next to the stadium, and the whole stadium turns around and waves at the kids that are in the hospital. It's really a heartfelt thing. It's really kind of cool. So definitely look it up if you haven't heard of it. But that's just one aspect of the healthcare system, is to try to make those children feel, you know, seen and looked upon. And it's just really a cool tradition that they started a few years ago. But again, the healthcare in Iowa is really, really good. So if that's important to you, Iowa probably is a place for you, because we do have some great hospitals here in the state. Now, these are the types of questions that people ask me all the time. So if you have any questions about real estate, state of Iowa, what it's like to live here, give me a call, give me a text. I am the one who answers those calls, texts, emails. But if you want to know more about what it's like to live in Iowa, check out this video right here.